All right. Hello and welcome back to Tydy Tea Time. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Soumya Samuel, and joining me is Debbie, Kiran,
Hi.
and Pooja.
Hello.
Hello.
And for today's topic, it's a very interesting topic. I think I'm expecting a lot of personal stories and experiences, not only from all of us, but I'm hoping all of you who are listening, can share your comments as well with us today. I, for one, I'm really interested in this topic for two incidents that have happened in my life. One was back in 2013, 2015. There was this Indira Nui article that had come up. I don't know how many of you remember it,
Oh
where
yeah.
she said, "Women can't have it all,"
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I was back in a corporate at that time. I was writing an article for our internal newsletter, and I went ahead and rebuffed everything that she said. I said that women can have it all, right? And today, 10 years after that, I'm kind of spending a lot of time with a mother with a 2-year-old kid. I'm seeing how she's kind of handling her work responsibilities and parenting. And somewhere I feel like I know that I was probably wrong in the comment that I'm in the article that I wrote long ago. And I think I have this newfound respect for parents, and that's where we'll start today. And particularly to Debbie and Kiran, maybe you could start with telling us your roles, two of those many roles that you play. One is of being parents, and the second is that of being leaders, entrepreneurs as well. And also tell us if you feel that in workplaces, parents are not fully seen.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh, Kiran, want to go first? No, absolutely not. Okay, great. I'll go first. Um, I'm a mom, first and foremost. I don't think anything I do will allow me to ever put that second to. And that's a choice. That's a personal choice. I'm a mom to two young children, 10 and 7 years old. And of course, I'm also heading marketing here at Tidy. So it's the two big responsibilities that I deal with in addition to other things. Yeah. And what was your second question?
Do you think that working parents are fully seen in an organization for everything that they do?
Um, in the organization I work in right now, I think we are seen. I can speak for right now. Luckily, I have worked in other places where working parents have always been treated well. I've been very fortunate in my professional life so far, um, and maybe that's also because a lot of the leaders were parents themselves. A lot of the leaders were women. I think that makes a difference as to how parents are seen, because I think women are more see it differently. I would say, and we'll go into deeper aspects of it, but I feel like women see parenthood differently and talk about it differently than men do. So yeah, I think in my experience, they have been seen, but I know for a fact that in a lot of places and in the workplace in general, it's not enough. Whatever is being done right now, or whatever is being discussed right now, is not
Right.
enough.
What about you, Kiran?
So yeah, dad to two kids. So and as an entrepreneur, I think that's like having three startups. But uh, have has parents been seen in the workforce? I'm not entirely sure what that even means. Very honestly, um, I think the perspective I can give is that at Tidy, we try and make sure that it's a space that is open and available for any type of worker.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
Being a parent is just another type of worker. It doesn't, in my head, you know, change anything else. It's just a different context of life. It's a different sort of life stage that you're in. It's certain decisions that you've taken, but it doesn't really kind of put you in a niche. It's
Mhm.
just another kind of, you know, type of worker for me. And therefore, if you're looking after all of your teams and workplace and everything, then parents are included as part of that.
Absolutely. Do you, in that context, then think, you know, I mean, from your experience, what are those specific challenges that you have probably faced while juggling both of these roles? And I consider that as two full-time jobs, or like you said, Kiran, three startups that you're handling, right? So what are those specific challenges that you may have seen? I feel like we all, there's so much that goes around this topic, but we don't have like conversations as much. Do you
Hmm.
feel that? And what are those specific challenges probably that you have
I
faced, you
think
have
in
overcome?
Yeah, so I think in my perspective, the main challenge is actually just one thing, which is time. Fundamentally, that's what you're kind of trying to battle with as a parent, as a worker. You're trying to juggle your so-called work-life balance, right? But unfortunately, I think from a parenthood perspective, it's not always just 9 to 5. It can be any point of time. You have a sick kid and you have to go pick him or her up and then bring him or her back home or whatever it may be. So I think the biggest concern would always probably in my head be about balancing time as far as being a parent is concerned at the workplace. There are many others, but I think this is the main thing that I feel is a big sort of challenge.
For me, it's guilt. It's this constant. Um,
But that's because of time, right? That's
yeah,
because of
yeah,
the time that you don't get.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And also the fact that when you do get the time, you kind of carry some of the stuff that happened, and that's human nature, right? You carry your work stress into the time that you have with your children, and it's very, very hard to compartmentalize sometimes, and I think that is what it is. So I carry that guilt with you into the workplace because you're like, I should have done better while I was at home spending time with my kids. I should have done better getting them ready for school, and maybe I shouldn't have rushed them. Maybe I shouldn't have shouted at them because they're not wearing their socks fast enough, things like that, and that you carry into your work day. And then you come back into the home, into your time with your kids, and you're like, oh, I had to finish this project, or I should have done that, or I should have finished this email. I didn't do it. How am I going to catch up? And that's playing on your mind while you're, trying to get them dinner. So it's a lot of guilt constantly, and that burden does weigh you down. I think that's what is a big challenge for me personally.
Interesting. Do you feel that as well, Kiran? Because you told it's time constraint for you as well. In that context, have you also experienced guilt the way Debbie does?
I mean, 100%. For me, it is eventually starting and ending with time, right? Because why do you feel guilt? Is because you're not spending enough time with your kid. And if you're spending time with your kid, like Debbie said, you're not spending quality time, right?
Yeah.
It's always something else that's going on in your head. So I will go back to the fact that it's just time and nothing else. It's not about, anything else in life. It's just about where you want to spend most of your time. But there are
I beg to differ,
parents
but
who may,
go on,
yeah,
go on.
go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
So I find, that having been a parent who's also taken some time off, right, to be with my kids, where I did have the time. Even then, I carried that guilt with me. Though I had the time, I allowed myself that. The guilt was, oh, I'm not being productive. Oh, I'm not contributing to the family coffers. I'm not bringing in any money. What am I doing with my professional career? Where am I going to go? What about all the work that I've put in so far? There's a lot of that also comes in during that time that you might have dedicated to parenthood. So it's never clean, it's never neat, and I don't know why. Maybe I haven't been able to achieve that.
But I mean, is that just parenthood, or it could be anything else, right? You've taken time off because of some other aspect. It doesn't
Yeah,
need to be
I
because
can
of
only
kids,
speak
right? You
about
will still
myself, right?
have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it doesn't need to be about parenthood, right? And it's not special to being a parent. The fact that you're taking a sabbatical or something like that, you could be wanting to go learn music and
No, no, no,
you
no. There is a difference. I again beg to differ. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of um, uh, weight attached to you taking time off. If you're taking a sabbatical and you're traveling and you're doing things for yourself, versus if you're taking time off to parent a child, because child rearing is not considered that special, like you said. It's not, and that is the problem. because people think like, oh, so what, people have done it for decades and centuries, right? Why are you whining about it now? People have brought up kids and they are perfectly fine. And that is the thing that is often not talked about enough, right? The fact that there is a lot that goes into it, not just time. You're talking about money, you're talking about effort, which is
Mhm.
unpaid work, right? So I find that's why, I mean, and again, like I said, maternity leave, great, I'm given that time, but you felt guilty because it was not valued. It was not valued.
Not valued by who?
But people at large, right? Look around
No,
you,
but
look
we're
at
talking
society.
about the
I
workplace over here. So,
I
Yeah,
so
yeah.
think
where
it's
does
very
that kind of?
interesting. Debbie brings that up because I have been a part of a conversation where there was this women employee who came back after a maternity break, and there were people talking about how she had a lot of free time, she enjoyed, and it is almost being treated as if she's come back from vacation, which is absolutely not the case, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
I think there's a gender role in this entire conversation, right? And we cannot ignore it. I think women experience this very differently than men do. Maybe some of the books that I've read, and this question again to Debbie and Kiran. Kiran, as a parent, do you feel that you'd be celebrated more for prioritizing your work over parenting? And Debbie, for you, the other way around, do you feel the pressure to prioritize parenting over your work and your career?
Kiran first.
Oh yeah, 100%. The short answer is 100%. You can hear my dog in the background, but 100%.
Fourth baby.
Uh, I think yeah, to the fourth baby, I think she's also vehemently agreeing. But being a male is definitely much easier in the workplace context, and kind of having that sort of I would say, you know, the perception that it's not your role and therefore anything you do is a amazing bonus for the wife, right? That's real. That's just society. Again, I want to clarify that's not the workplace, but that's just society, right? Since we're kind of keeping it very specific to the workplace context, that is not necessarily the workplace. It's the society that kind of looks at it that way.
But
Even
do
though
you not
workplaces
think?
try fighting it, but
Hmm.
the society at large will always kind of win, right? But that's just how we have evolved as humans, where we think that child rearing is a woman's prerogative, and a man being a part of that process is a privilege for the woman,
Hmm.
right? Whether workplaces see it that way, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that is how workplaces see it that way. The only reason I will probably contest that, and Debbie is itching to kind of butt in over here, is is your paternity versus maternity leaves as well, right? And what you expect from women. I mean, if you just take it at that really basic level, you expect the woman to go bring up a child versus you expect the man to come back and come back to the workplace. What's interesting is when we worked in Norway, when I was working in Norway, um, the the time off was very similar for both the man and the woman. And what happened is the man or the woman can give up their time, and the partner could take that time, right? So if there was 6 months in total, one person could take 6 months, or it could be split three and three, or it could be split 4 and 2. So then it's very, specific to how you are set up as a family, versus this rigid 9 month versus 1 month or 2 weeks or whatever it may be in India. So yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My take on this, workplaces build society. Okay, every workplace plus workplace plus workplace equals to society at large. Okay, people, I mean, we are a large working population. If the workplace is not discriminating against women, I'm sorry, we are not in the same zone. I mean, it's a fact that you're right about the fact that, paternity leave is so much shorter. It's barely 15 days, whereas women are allowed now to get like 3 months or longer off. It depends from company to company. It's mandated differently in different countries as well.
No, in India it's law. 6 months is bare minimum. That's
That's what I'm
law.
saying. Country to
Yeah.
country it differs, right?
Which, by the way, is amazing because in the US,
It's
it's like a month
which is
that you're given.
ridiculous. But
Yeah.
anyway, coming back to my point, the fact that women, there's something called the motherhood penalty, right? And that is what I wanted to kind of address here. And the motherhood penalty is paid within the workplace, where women might take that 6 months off, but then coming back into the workplace is that much harder. She takes a pay cut most likely when she comes back. In fact, I have stats to prove this. Within the workplace, HR people have said very clearly that they might not hire somebody who just maybe recently got married and might go on to having kids in the next 2 or 3 years. They will think twice about hiring women like that, young women.
And in fact, most agreements will say that you will be given a role depending on what's available. Don't be assured of the role that you had when you
Correct.
come back.
Exactly. So that is the penalty you're paying. You're paying through actual money. You're paying through the cost, the tax you're paying on your professional career taking a hit. I took I took a 2 year maternity break because of various personal reasons. I needed to at that time. And when I came back into the workplace, I was so ashamed. And that was my bad because I was a younger person at that time. I didn't know better. I came back into the workplace and took a massive pay cut. I didn't negotiate. I was grateful. I was like, oh my God, thank you for giving me a job. That's where I was at. And it took me a year to climb up and get paid at the same rate as my colleagues. A year because I worked bloody hard and they realized they were underpaying me, right? But it happened. And it kind of, I was like, wait, what? Was I getting paid so little compared to people in the same level as me in this company? It was a shock. But that happened because of that two year break that I took, right? So
Yeah.
it's a real problem, and it's a and we're talking about parenthood in general, and it happens like fathers who will ask for longer paternity leave perhaps will be looked down on. They'll be like, oh, are you dedicated to this job, or are you more interested, are you distracted by your familial obligations? There are things like that that happens. Of course, there is also the other side where if a dad says, oh, I need to go and pick up my kids from school, they'll be like, oh, what a caring and nice dad. Like you said, that's a bonus for the woman. Oh, how nice, the father is playing such an active role. But I mean, coming back to the point that workplaces are still working on it. A lot of places are still very, very much behind, and that's kind of proven by the fact that women are still falling out of the workplace constantly at a certain stage in their lives. They have kids, they fall out of the workplace, workforce, and they don't come back. And that's those are real numbers that you cannot really dispute.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of questions to ask all of you right now. But going back to that entire conversation around, Kiran, you said the society is a certain way and maybe workplaces aren't the same. But there's also research that shows maybe not reflecting on a male employee's performance, but in the social life within the workplace, when men kind of prioritize parenting, picking up kids or running errands for the kids, there's a difference that comes within the social life, right, within the workplace,
Yeah.
where your your colleagues there kind of treat you differently as well. So that's that. I think based on what Debbie said, we are also seeing a lot of women kind of reconsider wanting to have kids, maybe from an ambition career perspective. So Pooja, to you, do you think and do you see that kind of shift, and do you think that's what
Are
could be
we
the
making it
balance?
sound all scary for you?
Huh?
Are we making it all sound so scary?
Very. I mean, I was already scared. So now I'm double questioning it. But no, I think the future is hopeful. I mean, there's a lot that's changed for my generation, and the whole idea of having kids, whether it is balancing your work life, like there's a lot of reasons for why people are now deciding whether they want to have children or not want to have children. There's the responsibility level, the money, the thing. There is a lot of conversation around that in itself. So, but that said, I feel because of that and the level of opportunity that there is for people of like between 25 to 35 years of age. Like for me personally, if I were to, I don't know if I want to have kids or not. I haven't made that decision in my head yet. I'm not even, I mean, yeah, that I don't know about that. But if I were to have a child tomorrow, um, I would like for my environment, like the way I was brought up. I was brought up by a lot of I had a single parent for some time, and then uh, I mean there was a lot of up and down in my upbringing, but I never felt uh, that like a parent was not there. Like I was brought up by a family,
Right.
essentially, not just by the parents, you know. So there are so many of these different, how do you say it, like opportunity options of how you can raise a child
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
today. So um, that said, I don't know. I mean, think that there is a lot of possibility for change in and this is generally speaking. I was not talking specifically to the workplace. I was talking in general. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like they say, it's a cliche, but it's worth repeating again. It takes a village, and I think,
yeah,
oh, to what you said, right? You never felt like you were being raised by a single parent. You felt like you were being raised by a whole lot of people, by a whole
yeah,
family of people taking care of you, and that's kind of how I think a lot of working parents make it work today. Is they create that village, right? In some way or the other, you create that village of other caregivers, people you can trust to also help you with your child. You need to have that, and I find one thing that is interesting and important for us to, talk about is how the workplace can be part of that village. Because
right,
normally workplace is not part of that village, right? Whatever you do at home with your kids is separate. You come to the work, you're a professional, you talk about work, you finish your work, you're productive, you're efficient, you leave, and then you go back and get all frazzled about whatever, dinner, blue, whatever you have to do. But that line has to be kind of, made softer, because we are all human beings, and it comes down to that. We talk a lot about employee experience, right? And ultimately, the employee experience is people experience. We're all individual humans with needs, wants, challenges, personal issues, and parenthood is a very important part of that. There's a large percentage of people who have this massive responsibility on their shoulders. Why do you expect them not to talk about that? Why do you expect them not to bring that into the workplace? And the minute you can, and I think that's something that's great about Tidy, is the fact that I can talk to Kiran, who I've known forever. He knows my kids, I know his kids, so we can talk about, oh, my kid has a fever today, or this happened today, or whatever. And that simple act of being able to communicate and sharing makes such a huge difference, because suddenly I'm like, I'm not alone. There's someone who gets me, and this person is okay if today is not my best day, right? I think that facade of being professional and the best at work every day is not a burden that you have to carry anymore the minute you have open lines, open channels of communication.
yeah.
Interesting. And Kiran, what according to you, like what are employers already probably doing great when it comes to enabling working parents, and probably what's is there something more that we can really expect organizations to do as well?
I think to what Debbie said, which is blurring the lines between work and life, is a little bit of a double-edged sword.
It is.
Uh,
You're right.
like
Yeah.
like a lot of people kind of felt during the pandemic, right? Is
Yeah.
that they didn't know when work ended and when personal life had over. And I think that's also a little bit of a challenge from a workplace perspective and also from an employer perspective. How do you kind of bring that balance without um, taking advantage of it? Yeah,
Mm.
sure, bring your kids to work, but now you work till 9 o'clock, right? So how do you kind of balance that out is always going to be a big problem. I think the fact that we all spend majority of our lives working more than anything else
Yeah.
is a pretty big sort of realization as well for organizations, right? Is that we're spending most of our days working for someone else. And I think once organizations understand that and then are able to kind of personalize the experience to a large extent, it really really helps because having set policies is probably maybe the first first step, but it's not what really helps organizations thrive and individuals thrive as parents and whatever else life stage you may be in. So I think it's much easier to do in a smaller organization where, like Debbie said, you can have these kind of conversations and you know as a group where each person is for that particular day. It becomes much more complicated when you start growing and kind of
Yeah.
getting to scale, right? Few hundreds, few thousands, tens of thousands. It's almost impossible. Then why would the CEO ever care whether you are having a great day or a bad day, right? He's just looking at his day to a large extent. And I think that's sort of where businesses start losing it is how do you sort of personalize the whole experience for each individual as you continue to scale? And unfortunately, policies are not the answer. It's also not having a daycare service and saying, hey, by the way, go and use the daycare service. That's not it either.
Yeah.
The weird part is each parent has a very different requirement. Um, for me, and I've actually said this to some of our customers as well. If you want to reach me between 4 in the evening and 8:30 in the evening, I'm going to be unreachable, right? Because more often than not, I'm going to be with my kids, picking them up, you know, bath time and dinner time, putting them to bed, all of that. So I actually, and nowadays I don't control my calendar, but I've blocked that time off, right? So no one can book time during those hours unless it's like a real urgent sort of situation, or it's some leaders who just can't make any other time. Then there's that rare occasion. But I think if an organization is able to sort of mold itself around the individual,
Mm-hmm.
then you have sort of that balance that'll come in. It's not about work life, it is not about policies, it's not about benefits. All of those are great, you need to have it. It's base level. But just being able to kind of give the individual the sort of independence to figure their life out is, I guess, what's most important from an organization perspective. It's very tough. It's extremely tough to do, but
Yeah.
that's what's required.
Yeah. In fact, I think, you I love the idea of being able to do it for each individual. But like you said, I mean, in a large organization, 30,000 employees, how on earth are you going to do that? I mean, you can, again, there's a lot of, now with technology. And for example, what Tidy does, you personalize a lot of things. You automate a lot of things, you personalize a lot of things. You segment people based on, how many kids they have, how old their kids are, what life stage, how much support they might need. You run pulse surveys to figure out what the needs are. You do so many things you can. But somewhere, flexibility is key. That, like you said, the ability, for example, in Norway, for you to choose to take either 4 months and 2 months and split it between the two partners. That's one way. That where you've given the independence to the caregivers to decide how they want to structure their roles. Second is flexibility in terms of just picking, like you said, you have the flexibility to choose that between 4 and 8:30 I'm not available. I'm not going to schedule any important calls or meetings during that. I mean, that flexibility should be, maybe every company needs to have that. Like between 11 to 5, you need, or, it could be, that some parents will need to go during lunch break, for example, to pick up their kids, and then you don't have a choice. But yeah, understanding that, and maybe that becomes a manager to employee conversation that needs to happen. But
Yeah,
somewhere at the leadership level, you need to define that, okay, guess what? We are a company that understands what needs just saying that is the first step, is
yeah,
important.
Yeah. And I think adding to what both of you said, I feel like if we can decentralize that decision making to managers as well, like the power probably rests right now more with the C-suite or your HR. How do you decentralize that and kind of give a lot more autonomy to managers to kind of assist their teams to, you know, make these
yeah.
kind of decisions and choices they
I
want.
think that's the key, right? Because as I said, you can do this very easily in a small organization. And the
Yeah,
moment you're 20,000 people, that small organization is that manager's team. And so you can kind of do it over there, but the manager can't do it unless the organization says it's
that's
okay and
yeah,
has a sort of understanding, maybe even a policy for that, because organizations live and thrive on policies. So maybe you need to have a policy for that, but whatever it is, I think that's how it needs to be kind of looked at, as more micro units who support people within those micro units rather than an entire organization, right? Because the moment you look at it as an entire organization, you're never going to be able to make work for working parents. So yeah.
yep, that's true. I think we've run out of time for now. Maybe as is our custom, one last final parting statement from all of you. Maybe what you're taking back from here today.
Well, I don't know. My parting statement: work. Does it work for working parents? I think it can work. In some companies, it does. It's very, very subjective. But a lot of things have to change. I mean, we've been talking about this since the 1970s. I think even longer. Maybe 1920s is when it first started. When women started talking about how you need to account for the fact that what we're doing at home is also work, and therefore when we are in the workplace or decide not to be in the workplace, you have to you know count us as the working population. I think that it starts there. And today, sadly, in spite of everything, we're still struggling to keep women in the workplace. We're still struggling to keep women in senior leadership positions in the workplace. We still talk about how not enough boards have women on them. That's because a lot of women, really talented women, have just left. They've just left. So something really needs to be done. And I'll leave you with one stat that I found in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? Which is basically providing one simple thing, which is childcare. Providing childcare to working parents, to working mothers, specifically to women, could add up to $3 trillion to the global economy in a year, right? That's a lot of money. It's a simple thing, right? Maybe we need more of that, and in a flexible way, because not every working parent will need the same type of childcare, will need the same kind of support. But just identifying that this is a need, and it can solve a lot of issues, right? I mean, we can go into that. That's a topic for another day, childcare by itself. But I'll stop there. Kira, parting thoughts?
Oh, my parting thought is fairly simple. Uh, we're building Tidy to make sure that it can accommodate and be relevant for each individual. So we're extremely supportive of, for example, women coming back into the workplace, and in fact, that's something that we always kind of look at from a hiring perspective as well. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, if there's anyone who's interested, which organization will be on your side.
It's interesting you
No
say this,
shameless plug
Kiran.
whatsoever. Go ahead, Samir.
Interesting you say this, Kiran. I think what I meant when in the beginning I said being seen was just that, right? How do I have an experience with the organization that's personal to me, and how I'm not just being a part of the mass, right? And that's what I meant by being seen for working parents as well. How do you customize that for me as a working parent? Anything
Yeah.
from your
Yeah.
side, Krishna?
Uh, I think this is a good topic that will continue as a conversation. It's been ignored and it's definitely needs to be seen a lot, but I think it will stick, especially with the generations to come. My generation, we have a lot to say as it is. So things like this will definitely pop up more, conversations like this. So I'm glad that we
Yeah.
had this chat today to open up the floor a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Until next tidy tea time, we'll see you all. Bye bye.
See you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.